Welcome to the Rylan Konowalchuk show, everyone. Where today we're going to be talking about Israel and Netanyahu agrees to a 20-point peace plan, Canada's upcoming budget on November 4th, and much more on the Rylan Konowalchuk show. With the new 20-point peace plan between Israel and Trump have agreed on, Israel will not annex or occupy Gaza within that plan, which I think is an all right situation, but we'll see what happens here. But at this point, they do not want them to be obviously focused on that right now. So we'll see what happens here. Obviously, there's other things to be worried about in this situation, but we'll see as time goes on and how things are approached with this plan and whether Hamas and them can come together. Trump gives Hamas 3 to 4 days to accept this peace plan or otherwise be kind of severe consequences against Hamas, as he said. So we'll see how that gets approached as well, because right now, I don't think Hamas will let up the fight. I don't believe they will let up the fight against Israel. I personally do not believe there is a genocide in Gaza. I think that's too strong of a word. Is there problems in Gaza? Sure. But I'm not sure a genocide would be the right word for the state, for that, for the stuff that's going on in Gaza. Trump needs to have some success here with this plan, just because he faces a serious situation like he faces with the Russia and Ukraine war, where he can't get peace between the two countries, and now he's green-lighted Vladimir Zelensky to go on an absolute war train. So this is another thing that is going to be heavily focused on, and we'll see if he gets a step forward in the Israel-Gaza situation, because I think he's going to be more focused on this right now, just because he thought the Russia-Ukraine war was easy to solve and to get more success out of, because he thought he had a great relationship with Vladimir Putin, which I still think he somewhat does, but just not in the sense of where he's at right now. He's not going to get much success with that war. As Putin does not want to come to the table, he's going to have to put pressure on Putin. This is why he's green-lighted Ukraine. That's how he's going to approach this now. So we'll see what happens. And a whole bunch more. Obviously, there's other challenges globally as well that he's going to be facing Trump. Obviously, this Russia-Ukraine situation that's going on makes Trump actually, in my opinion, look weak. But also that would, especially a sign of weakness to Hamas and Russia. Right now, he's giving that because other than them going to be pushing back here, it gives a weakness sign to Hamas to they can take advantage of Trump in any way. So that's kind of the situation there. Iran has been weakened, which is why they will most likely want Hamas to accept the deal. They have been weakened since Trump and Israel bombed Iran's nuclear facilities. They have been much more weakened. Their terrorist organizations are weak. They don't have very much there. But to think that they would actually think that right now, why they'd want that is because they'll probably want time for Gaza to become almost the Palestinian state, which will help Iran to start funding another terrorist organization, which will go against and attack Israel again. That is the goal of this for Iran. That is going to be their central piece of argument, and what they'll want to do is they'll want to go ahead and attack Iran. Obviously, there's other challenges there. Obviously, a whole bunch of different things going on that are complex in this situation that Trump's dealing with. But I still think this is going to take at least a little bit longer. It's going to take a lot longer right now to even get close to a ceasefire. But I do believe that fundamentally they've almost looked the same way as Russia in the Middle East. Not to be mean to the Middle East, but they have that fighter's instinct, which Russia does have in a sense, is they have this fighter's instinct that they want to get even closer to their dreams, so they'll fight and fight and fight until the end, until they get their dreams, which most countries don't have. and most countries will not do nowadays. So that is obviously a benefit to them, and a whole bunch more on how they approach that type of stuff. And depending on how that situation goes, it's obviously going to be a unique situation coming up forward and how they kind of approach that. So we'll see what happens, but it's obviously something they're going to have to focus on too. Obviously, especially those who follow Islam typically tend to be more extreme in that region. Not to say people who are Jewish aren't extreme or anything else. It just tends to be that the Islamic side, especially the Islamic parts that are more of the fighter, will typically you'll see more terrorism. And I think you'll see more terrorism in the region for the future to come just because of the situation that they want to destroy Israel. It's just as simple as it is. And if people can't understand that, they want to destroy Israel, and they're going to do it in any way they can to fund any terrorist organization they want, and that's kind of how they're going to do it. Let's move on to our next topic about the fall 2025 budget on November 4th. So the parliamentary budget officer came out and said the budget will be 68 billion-ish deficit. Obviously, Canada's economy isn't doing too well. It contracted in the second quarter. It's expected to be a little bit slower in the third quarter. Part of the increase of the budget deficit includes defense and extra expenditure for businesses affected by Trump's tariffs. Obviously, that is something that they're dealing with right now. We'll see what happens here, but the defense is key because the parliamentary budget officer did not have calculate all the defense spending to 2030 as Canada tries to hit the 5% target. Obviously, Carney was tariffing USMCA compliant goods, which first of all was a bad idea. First of all, if you're tariffing US goods, it's an extra cost to Canadian consumers because it's an extra tax. Canadians were in favor of the fighter back instinct, but they didn't realize it was going to hurt their own pocketbook in the long term, which was not the approach they should have been taking, and obviously that's what happened. But people got to remember too, Canada was struggling before Trump came into office under Justin Trudeau. Inflation in 2022 risen. You had a couple that recessionary period during the COVID years, and then you obviously had Justin Trudeau's unnecessary spending after COVID. This is what caused the inflationary period to get up to 8.5% in 2022, and a whole bunch of different things. So we'll see what happens here, but that's kind of what's going on now. And a whole bunch more is going to happen. Let's move on to our third topic. So, U.S. begins deporting hundreds of Iranians after a deal with Iran. 400 Iranians are flying back to Iran. Before that, they're going to make a quick stop in Qatar and hopefully make steps forward to get some. And a part of this group is convicted criminals, but also illegal immigrants, according to a U.S. official, according to Reuters. This is obviously a part of Trump's immigration crackdown, which I support an immigration crackdown. There is no, I don't disagree with it. But fundamentally, it does affect your economy because economic loss of unauthorized workers, which can lead to a reduction in the labor supply, which means U.S. wages will go down for American-born citizens. So there's obviously other challenge there. So we'll see what happens here. There's obviously legal and constitutional challenges with this stuff too that comes along with it, but obviously we'll see what really fundamentally happens here and how things get approached and how things change and how Trump particularly battles this. They seem to have agreed. Especially this is kind of one of the first deals after the US striked Iran's nuclear capabilities. So we'll have to see what goes on here. Trump floats the 51st state again. Of Canada becoming the 51st state. I just think this is just simply a joke. I'm sure he's interested in it, but I don't see why he'd be interested because it would be like turning California into one of the biggest electoral states just to swing the electoral to their advantage, to the Democrats' advantage. So I don't see the point of this. But I also think this is being used for leverage and strength. That's probably the goal of this. We'll see what happens here, but hopefully things will make a little bit more process, and we'll see what happens. Thank you for tuning into the Rylan Konowalchuk Show.